Alright, let's get this intro out of the way. I am a shamelessly competitive Mario Kart player, and I'm aware that a lot of people don't like people like me for that reason. If you're one of those people though, I do ask that you hear me out today because I think we'll reach an understanding conclusion. Because believe it or not, I'm actually really satisfied with the balance patches this game received. Yes, the ones that killed Waluigi on the Wiggler. I'm surprised to say that I think Nintendo actually got what they wanted with this patch, and did it in a way that didn't damage the game's meta really at all outside of time trials. And we'll discuss all of that in this video, but we need to first set the stage for why things happened as they did, and talk about the borderline toxic friction between Mario Kart meta haters and defenders. At the end of the day, we're all fans of the same series who just like playing in different ways. Recently on this channel, I've been able to enjoy speculating with many types of different Mario Kart fans on what secrets the booster pass might hold, and that's been cool. But one thing is clear, a lot of us don't see eye to eye on everything, and that is okay. A lot of you have left comments disagreeing with me on things, maybe you didn't like one of my grades on a report card video, and that's more than fine, and what is cool about people in general even, we all have different opinions. I am an opinionist, and I don't plan to change that, because good opinions and bad ones are interesting and create discussions, and in this case, excitement around the game to begin with. And as long as we can have civil discussions, things are great, even when there is disagreement. One of my jobs is to give reasoning as to why I feel the way I do. You can accept that reasoning, let it change your mind, or disagree in spite of it, and you are free to do so. But I do think it is important to understand where people are coming from, even when you do disagree. Being able to agree to disagree and to do so in a respectful manner where you listened to the counter-argument is important, as long as that opinion isn't, well, harmful to anyone. So the balance patches happened, and I think a lot of it had to do with some tension between your average worldwide race enjoyer and your more competitive player. The old Waluigi Wiggler combo just seemed to be an easy distinction between who belonged to what camp. Waluigi Wiggler had been the consensus top combo in the game years before the announcing of the booster pass, so it is interesting that the first tweaks they made to the game came with Wave 3 rather than Wave 1. What it suggested to me was that more eyes had fallen on the game again, and more people started talking about this build negatively. Coming from the competitive player side, I think competitive players have got a lot of unwarranted hate though. I do understand the perspective from the more casual, less tryhard player though. There are a lot of random people who just try to mimic tryhard setups for worldwides, and worldwides aren't really a place that need to be too serious, at least in my eyes. Additionally, VR grinders may rub off on people the wrong way in this game, since the ideal method seems to be focusing on low VR lobbies, which is the last thing new players really need to deal with. That will be a topic for another day though. There have even been instances where players just troll players that they find easy to beat as well, and that's a pretty crappy thing to do, even if it likely happens in every online game. But of course, in some instances, there may just be animosity over losing to someone using a quote better build than you. So why do all these players try so hard? Well, I personally became the way I am because I simply loved Mario Kart DS and ran out of things to do on it. I was too good for the computer players in versus mode and didn't have online play at the time, so if I wanted to keep playing, the only engaging thing for me to do was time trial and find new ways to beat my times, and this is how I discovered more advanced strategies. You see, Mario Kart DS had snaking, which was pretty much a way to constantly be in a mini turbo boost. Snaking was difficult but incredibly rewarding to pull off. It made the game much more interesting to me because the game got faster and more precise. Prolonging your mini turbos was very satisfying, and having builds that could charge mini turbos quickly and sustain long boosts made the game just incredible to me. While many probably once labeled me as a tryhard who didn't know how to have fun, the truth of the matter was that using something like Bowser's Hurricane was just lame to me, because I would just be driving in a straight line with tiny boosts. And as I got better, I experienced a lot of enjoyment and personal satisfaction by just self-improving at a difficult task and pushing myself to my limits. When I did get online in Mario Kart Wii, I was finally able to play against other like-minded racers, and this led to me making a team to play with. Ever since then, this has just been a big hobby of mine. I really enjoy competing against strong racers. I think what needs to be stated is that most of the actual competitive racers don't actually worldwide with an intention to just beat up on lower ranked players. I personally don't really worldwide at all anymore, and when I want to win, I want to defeat people that play the game like me, nor do I want to be responsible for making a worldwide less enjoyable for racers that have a more casual approach. Most competitive players are like me, and prefer playing against each other in private lobbies and tournaments. There are some people who I guess make a bad impression on enough people to warrant posts like this in worldwide races though, so we have to talk about it. I'm guessing the main culprits aren't actually people from the competitive community, but rather players like me growing up who had just not found the resources yet, like the Mario Kart 8 Lounge or Mario Kart Central, etc. These players are likely aware of the best setup, but they might see worldwide play as the best way to test themselves. But regardless of any numbers, there was a widely shared opinion before any of these patches. Waluigi on the Wiggler is a problem for the game's health, and the people who use it are losers. Should this be something that bothers us? Well, I wouldn't say so. It's a pretty rude thing to stigmatize a group of people to be neck-bearded, light-fearing basement dwellers just because they put a lot of time into a video game that they like. Like, guys, people have interests. It's okay to want to be good at something and to want to win. It's okay to use an optimal strategy as long as you aren't hurting anyone, and you should just let people have fun in general. But where this divide really hit was that both groups of players felt that the other was infringing upon the other, because there were still people ruining worldwides to start. But I think what wasn't really understood by the casual audience who wanted this combo dead was the negative implications a change could have had on the game for perhaps the most passionate group of karters in the world. A change could have had a massive risk on how fun the game actually is at higher level, so between the insults and calls for change, it definitely could be seen as a form of attack, whether it was realized or not. When thinking of potential changes, Nintendo could have gone one of two directions. They could simply buff other combinations to help them catch up to the meta, or they could simply nerf the pre-existing best combos. Both options would come with a massive negative consequence that I will explain in a moment. Because of this though, the competitive scene wanted no changes at all, because realistically speaking, no matter what change happened, the same problem would eventually arise again. The community would all flock to the same character and just use the new optimal build, causing the cycle to repeat. So it seemed like any change would create new problems with a trade-off of not actually solving any current ones. The thought for a while is that nerfs to top combos were far more likely to happen than buffs to weaker ones. This is because any buffs to other combinations would create serious risk at invalidating time trial world records immediately. Times that players spent huge sums of time going after, or legendary world records like Ribbon Road could just be beaten by weaker attempts in a post-buff world, and that did not seem like something Nintendo would do. On the contrary, nerfing setups would potentially cause a situation where some world records would become unbeatable, which is surely even worse. But we had seen Nintendo make changes like this before. In Mario Kart 7, they patched the original glitches out of the game, but it was for online play only. Time trialers who had set times with those glitches could thus still compete with their time set on pre-patch builds, even in a post-patch era. The other big problem with nerfing is that it can create a less enjoyable experience. Like I was talking about earlier, using the meta build on Mario Kart DS was significantly more fun than using a low-tier vehicle, because the high-tier vehicle allowed for dynamic gameplay to be rewarded. It was more involved and faster, and MKDS thrived because of it in my opinion. In a world where these abilities were taken away, the game would lose out on strategies that made the game so enticing of a speed game to begin with. For the Smash fans out there, nerfing vehicles like the Egg 1 and Dry Bomber so that they could not snake would be directly comparable to making it so characters couldn't wave dash in Melee. Mario Kart Wii and 7 also had top vehicles that had absurdly broken properties. Wii had the Flame Runner, which had access to wheelies, inside drift, and high speed. Considering you could standstill mini turbo in Mario Kart Wii, which could largely negate a bad acceleration stat entirely, and how well the Flame Runner could take mostly every turn in the game, you had a vehicle that essentially had no major weaknesses at all. A lot of people love Mario Kart Wii, citing how much control you have over your vehicle as to why, and I agree with them. The Flame Runner being so good made Mario Kart Wii better. A while back on one of my videos, a commenter mentioned that there should be an option to allow every build to mimic certain statistics, like in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. I agreed that this could be a very good change. It would allow for more personality and character selection. I mentioned in response that in a world without character balancing, they could just make everything insanely good and overpowered. And the thought for me is that, like in MKWii, a setup that is powerful would be good for everyone. But the commenter disagreed, saying that it would be unfair. And this comment had me dumbfounded, and I cannot help but think that there was some misunderstanding somewhere. Because in my mind, if everyone has equal access to the same stats and abilities even when using different builds, the game should still be fair. My take is just that a game that is fair, fast, and dynamic is better than a game that is fair, slow, and static. Mario Kart 7's monster tires absolutely dominated the meta of that game. They allowed players to be able to still drift during the slowdown of off-road, which is a standout feature for a meta combo in the newer MK game era. Speed and off-road were not traditionally stats that have much positive correlation between each other, but the combo in this game was stupidly good and once again made the game better in my mind. Players had more options at their disposal in a lot of situations because of the monster tires. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has been largely the same, but rather than a focus on speed with good off-road, the meta combo has always valued speed and mini-turbo. Deluxe is also the first game that has really been potentially susceptible to balance patches, so in the present day, we were a little bit nervous, because nerfing the best combination could very likely mean the game would run slower at top level. It could mean mini-turbo was nerfed in the best vehicle, which would result in less room for improvisational mini-turbos in gameplay, which is a big part of the game online. A world where something like metal tires were meta sounded absolutely dreadful to all of us. And luckily for the online players, this isn't what happened, because they chose to buff other vehicles rather than nerf. 4 months later, we are now living in a completely new world. A better world, I would argue. And when this patch came out and we realized that everything was about to change, I made a video that night called Waluigi is Over. I was one of the first people to report the news here, and I wanted to do so responsibly. It is important for me to mention that players should not just assume that no top character will ever haunt the game again. Likely the same issues would occur, and I was entirely right, but also, luckily wrong. This is because Yoshi has ended up being the character that has stood the test of time. Now this is subject to change, but this is positive news for now, because if Yoshi is the new Waluigi, it's going to be really hard to notice. Yoshi having all the different colors means that any potentially settled upon combo is always going to have some form of additional expression to differentiate the players, and this is really good news. There's always going to be the potential factor of blending in that might ruin this balance, but I think players only really start to feel the pressure of this when the majority of the lobby decides upon one color, and I haven't seen that happening yet. As of right now, nobody is at a disadvantage for using the colors they want, because if everyone has that quote disadvantage, then nobody does. That problem only really started because Waluigi was slightly better than DK and Roy in the past, which lured enough people to him that other characters stood out. The different Yoshi skins don't appear to have any competitive disadvantages compared to the others. In my opinion, Yoshi is a really hard character to get mad at also. He's popular and shares the same stats as other common Mario characters like Peach, Daisy, and Birdo, who also has a bunch of different color options. So this tier being the best potentially was the best case scenario for Nintendo. I don't see casual players being as angry over this because not every combo will look exactly the same, even if it's very similar. Something about people using Yoshi feels weirdly more inviting also than Waluigi, a character whose own characterization makes him feel tryhard. And all the different colors is going to make casting the game easier as well. So bravo Nintendo, you actually did it. You got what you wanted out of a balance patch. Wave 3's attempt with the invincibility stat being added did not give me much hope, because I felt that this stat actually made the game worse off. I wish they would have gotten rid of it, but they doubled down on its changes in Wave 5 it seems, by actually buffing Waluigi on the Wiggler ironically. I guess they just see invincibility as a way of doing minor buffs and nerfs without actually affecting time trials or anything. These buffs have also come in a way that has allowed them to bring competing characters closer together too. More characters are closer to medium weights than heavier ones, and the more minute stat differences now make alternative options to what is deemed meta less of a drop-off than they previously were. This will not solve the problem of getting rid of a best combo, but it will make it a bit easier to compete with said best combo. That being said though, it is still likely that players that lose with a suboptimal combo will still be mad over the new meta. This cycle is just inevitable. But perhaps the best thing about this change is what it actually means for the meta, weirdly. Smash players like buffs for a reason. It makes more playstyles able to compete at top level without getting rid of any perks that players already have. But it's a little different here because Mario Kart builds for the most part have the same playstyle already. It shouldn't matter which outside drifting vehicle is the best, as people will just play the same way regardless. But this might not actually be true here, because an overpowered Yoshi actually does play a bit differently. Yoshi's speed is now strong enough to compete with the old combos, but his mini-turbo stat being better allows for what I would call an even more flexible playstyle than Waluigi. Combine this with better acceleration, traction, and handling, and you have a character that is as fast as the old meta, with even more in-race versatility and room for improv. His mini-turbos charge fast and last longer, so you have players doing mini-turbos where even the old MT combos like the Biddy and Scooty would just drive straight. And this is cool, though I will admit that there is a trade-off of making the game slightly easier as well. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'll leave up to you guys to decide. Even outside of the game though, there have been some benefits for me as well. As a player who frequents LAN tournaments, I think it is more inviting for new players to join an environment where they aren't one of the only standouts using a different setup. And I've also got to admit, This patch is largely responsible for the resurgence of my YouTube channel. Waluigi is Over was the first of many videos that brought eyes back over here, and it forced me to reevaluate the types of content I make. But I'm really grateful to have seemingly so many people who want to listen to me talk MK these days as well. I'll talk more on this at the end, but it is funny. The perception that Waluigi's dethroning would be bad for competitive players was completely wrong. So many of you were having a party in the comments, and when I wrongly diagnosed that Rosalina might be the new meta character, many people even said that they were happy with this change because it now meant their favorite character was the broken one. Talk about irony. And maybe some of you feel you were in the right to tell people like me to not be so beholden to a character, and that we should have just been open to change all along. But I will say this. I did like Waluigi, but I was never actually attached to him. I hope now near the end of this video that it's understood why so many competitive players were nervous about a change though, because there truly were a lot of ways to mess the game up, and luckily, these changes didn't do so for online play. When combining Yoshi's versatility with the less hostile view we receive and the better general approachability of being a Yoshi player, this is a win for me in most facets. So all's well that ends well, right? Well, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. I do of course have to bring up that these changes did come at a major cost still, and that a lot of fears of some competitive players did become a reality. We avoided the major consequences of nerfs, but we did not avoid the major consequences that buffs could bring to the table. These consequences mainly played out in the form of time trials. Now what's really weird about Deluxe is that the DLC came out so late into the game's life, like indefensibly late. And it is particularly bad here that this balance patch came 6 years into the game's life, because we were getting to the point finally where world records were really starting to become strong. Some of these records were becoming borderline legendary. For instance, what would have been the first 1,000-day world record in the game's history fell at 994 days due to a new combo just being better, which is particularly unfortunate considering Wave 4 released 1 week earlier than Wave 1 did a year later. When this patch dropped, suddenly world records started falling to objectively inferior runs that were just using faster vehicles, and in a future where this could all change again in a future update, there's a risk towards speedrunning now. P documented this issue and its impacts on the time trials community better than I ever could in his recent video about Wave 4's balance patch, and I highly encourage you to check out his video on the topic. I'll make sure to include it in the video outro and description. At the very least, Wave 5 seemed to do things right as far as I can tell. Some new setups caught up to the Yoshi meta now, but didn't become the outright better option. But this still does not erase the impact of the Wave 4 patch, and though there is nothing that can be done now, it's still worth stating still. It's just a gentle reminder that even relatively positive changes can have some very negative consequences. So to summarize, I think the game is in a better spot now than it was before, but this does not mean that this goes for everyone, and that's okay and valid. We all have different opinions, and if I asked honestly if I would still make the changes knowing what I know now, I'm not sure I would. Because I believe this change negatively impacted some people much more strongly than it really benefited a likely larger population. I don't think it's a simple good/bad type of argument though. I think I would have done things slightly differently to try to appease as many people as possible if I had the choice. Because a lot of what happened here were very predictable outcomes of change. What shocked the community more than anything was that Nintendo made the change anyway, likely knowing what the result of said actions would be. So that about wraps us up today, but there's one more important thing I want to briefly mention before I go. For a while now, I thought a video appealing to both casual and competitive players alike was necessary, and this discussion was long overdue. I hope both sides can gain a better understanding about the issues that matter to the other though, but at the end of the day, it is often important to realize that we all exist on different sides of the same coin. I've mainly been doing videos recently that appeal to all types of Mario Kart fans, so I recognize a lot of viewers now likely aren't involved in the competitive scene whatsoever, nor are really that interested. And if that describes you and you're perfectly content as you are, then that's great. I will say now though that I do plan on making some videos again that addresses the competition side of the game in the future, as well as the community surrounding it. This of course will be mixed in with more general Mario Kart videos aimed at a wider audience, but feel free to take a look and even ask questions if you find yourself clicking on one of the more personalized upcoming videos. You all are always welcome to dip your toes in the water if you have questions or interest in learning about Mario Kart tournaments, so feel free to ask in any comment section of mine or in my Discord server. We'll be glad to help out, and if it's not for you, I also completely understand. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. I hope to catch some of you in the upcoming videos, so here's a list of topics that should be on the way in the near future. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all then.